Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of She Plays Games, the podcast where we celebrate women in the games industry. For today's episode, I'm really excited because today I have Emily Bailey on, who is actually one of the co-directors at Antler Studios. Antler Studios is an indie games company comprised of Emily and a few of her classmates that she met while studying games design at Brunel University. Her and her team have created Project Grove, which is an adventure puzzle game which, after smashing their Kickstarter campaign, will be releasing on Steam in August. On this podcast, we discuss her role in the team and the triumphs and struggles Antler Studios has faced trying to get their game off the ground. I really hope you enjoy Emily's story, and if you like what I do, please be sure to subscribe to my podcast on your chosen platform. This is episode 21 of She Plays Games. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's such a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lauren. I really appreciate it.
First off, can I just say congratulations on Project Grove passing its funding goal on Kickstarter. That must have been such a relief, and it's just so exciting as it means that you're one step closer to realizing your dream of having this game become a reality.
Oh, thank you. It feels really surreal. It was one of the most proudest moments of my life, to be honest, just because it was a culmination of 2 years of really hard work and a lot of sacrifice. And to see that people actually liked our game enough to back us was really incredible. So thank you.
It must have been so validating as well.
Yeah.
That you're in the right direction.
100%. I did so much reading before we sort of made the plunge to go for a Kickstarter campaign or any crowdfunding campaign, because there's so much risk involved with it. And from all of our experience with applying for publishers, the one thing that we kind of were told was we're not known in the industry yet. Yeah, we had social media following, but it wasn't anything, crazy, which would have been really hard to achieve anyway at such a low level that we were at that time with the game. It was in really early stages, and from every bit of reading that I sort of did about different methods of funding in the industry, crowdfunding was a way to rubber stamp to prove that people did want to buy your game. So it was commercial validation for potentially future publishers and everyone else. So for us to then get that was just really almost it's weird, because at the time we kind of it hit midnight and we made the goal, and it was all I didn't even know how to feel. I was wow, we've done it, and it felt so surreal, and everyone else in the team felt the same. I was are you guys celebrating? And they were we're just so tired,
yeah,
catch your breath. And then everyone celebrated after that. Then it was crazy.
Yeah, you need that moment to just register everything that's happened.
Yeah, I remember Lauren, our community manager at the time, she was oh my God, we've done it. I was yeah, we've done it, because me and her worked really closely throughout the sort of prepping and execution of the whole campaign. And she was I haven't even done an update to say that we've got funded. This was a few hours afterwards, because it was literally that sort of exhaustion at the end of it. So yeah, it's funny when I think back of it now.
No, I think that always happens though. I find it with my kids as well. I'm wait, hold on. I haven't actually taken it. It's when you just don't take a picture of these amazing moments in your life. You just don't think about oh wait, I actually have to capture this. I have to share this with everybody now. You almost sort of want to soak up the moment for yourself, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. I can completely relate to that. My friend Pete actually has a saying. He says he's like, some things are better to capture with your eyes. Because we were on holiday once and I kept taking pictures of everything. He was like, Emily, some moments are just better to capture with your eyes. I was like, oh yeah. But it's so true.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's a really nice saying. And yeah, I'm always like that. Like Daryl always yells at me because I never have my phone on me, and I'm just kind of like, I'm taking it in, but oh well. Either way, this is like absolutely amazing, and I know that like the past couple of years, you've just been working sometimes up to 3 different jobs at a time to try and keep the momentum up on this project. How did you manage to keep yourself mentally afloat during this time?
I think a big part of it is I've got a really good support network around me. I've got my partner, Bill, has been really supportive throughout this whole process. I met him at my final year of university, which is kind of when Project Grove was getting born. So he's been with me from like the start of this, and has just been really supportive, has never sort of made me doubt the direction I'm going in. And the same with my parents as well, and my sister. Just my family around me are really, really supportive with what I'm doing. I remember there was one moment where I was thinking, oh God, is this the right thing? Like maybe people just don't want to play a puzzle game. Maybe, publishers aren't really on what they're seeing. So, or they do, but there's so many things we need to change first. And my mum was just like, you know what, Emily, she's like, I don't think you should worry. I think you guys are going to do it. And she just said that like really randomly back in 2018. And I was like, you don't even know the game, Mum. She's like, yeah, but I just back you. I think you'll do it. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And just moments like that really kind of keep you grounded. And I guess one thing that I've learned mostly through this whole process as well is to make sure you have time for yourself. It's so easy to be caught with work, especially when it's like your own business, but you have to take the weekend off sometimes. You have to remember to go out to dinner with your partner or, do things, because that sort of mental balance is super important. So yeah, that would be my like top tips.
Yeah. I think that is the thing. You're exactly right, though. I mean, so many times, especially in this industry, people just run themselves ragged. And like you can say like, oh, well, if you're doing something that you love, it doesn't really matter, but it still does. Like you still need to like take care of yourself, and like even just taking a shower, like a long hot shower where you're not thinking about anything, it's so important to really keep in tune with yourself as well as what you're working on. I think that's really, 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 really key.
And that's you've hit like the nail on the head with like how the crunch is such an issue in the industry. Working through the night to get something delivered on time. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what, we've got things that have cropped up. This is going to have to be put back a week or two. Because it just doesn't work when people are slaving away like that. It's just such a sort of a bad trait of the industry. It's so bad for morale, and it's why a lot of people end up leaving. I really believe that.
The concept of crunch time is something that's only just recently like been brought to my attention, and how like intense it is. I think I was sitting in on the Rockstar panel at Women in Games, and they were saying how they've taken measures to try and alleviate the issue of crunch time and try to make the crunch time nicer. And then like there was the sort of quote unquote rumor, which I think has been disproven now with Naughty Dog, but that they were on sort of partial payroll or something, like the staff were getting less salary in sort of the lead up to the game releasing, and then once they released the game they were going to get a bonus or something. Don't quote me on that. It was just something that was like flying around. But like this idea that like you have to work and work and work and work to get this game done for release date, and then you can relax. It's so damaging.
Yeah, it really is damaging. And we've sort of spoken about it in our studio before, because, it's inevitable. It happens. And I think the thing with games, and one thing that I've learned sort of planning production of it and stuff like that. It's that you can't predict how things are going to turn out. Sometimes you design something and it's completely not how you expected, or one small aspect actually turns out to be much more complicated than you think it is. And we plan stuff, we estimate the time, and then we usually double the time of that just in case, and it's still, we need more time. And I think one thing we've spoken about for our studio is, if we get up and running properly and we get sort of more funding secured or project growth really hits off, we'd love to do something where every employee in Antler Studios has a bonus that they can collect at the end of the release of a game, which isn't affected by their salaries. Salary is normal, because I just think unless you have something that rewards people for that extra hard work, I just think this industry is going to have that high turnover. I think it's like, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was ridiculously high. Leave the industry after like 5 years, and it's just crazy.
I know there's like a lot of indie developers as well who especially go through all these sort of struggles with development, like working on passion projects without any real like financial return. Has it been made any easier by working with 3 other people who are like basically in the same boat as you?
Yes and no, but mainly yes. I think one really good thing about working on a team is that you do sort of pick each other up when one's feeling a bit down. And that's the thing that I've always found with Tom, Harry and Harris, is that, you may think, oh my God, this just isn't working. Like, we're never going to get anywhere, blah, 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 really like feel down about something. And then they'll just say a one-liner, which just absolutely cracks you up. And it just changes it. And I think being in that same position, it's also really motivating as well, because you think, God, well, if Harry and Tom are still going, then I can still keep going. And, it's motivating in that sense. I think the only time where it's not as good potentially is when, I'm always aware that my input impacts their success as well. So that in itself comes with a lot of pressure. And I'm sure it's the same, with them as well.
Yeah, like it must be a lot of responsibility, like that you guys are just, you're literally a team, like all of your members have to be accounted for and stuff. And it almost kind of sounds like one of those races where you're just like, you're all in it together and, nobody can slack, like rowing. I imagine it to be like, everybody has to pull their weight when you do these kind of races. And that's, like so. To have to do that with games as well. So, I mean, obviously you guys met each other through university. How did you guys sort of come together? Because I know that you did it for your dissertation. Where you just did you just like spark up a friendship during this time, or were you guys put together?
So we met at Brunel University, and in our first year at games design, they had an assignment, and it was to make a tabletop game based on the idea of Alcatraz. So me, Tom, and Harry, not Harris, only me, Tom, and Harry were put in a group, and we were put in a group with, I think, three or 2 others. They all ended up dropping out and doing nothing on the project. So what was supposed to be like a 5-6 man project ended up just being Tom, Harry, and I
hate that. I honestly, that's the worst thing that I hate. I hate about group projects is that there's always a flake, and you're just like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I know, it's so relatable. Everyone's been there. So that kind of actually brought us together, and we just had like an absolute blast making this board game. We really got on with each other. And we ended up getting like one of the highest marks that had been awarded for that assignment, which was really cool. It was a really good board game. We keep saying that we need to actually make that one day so we can all play it again.
So what kind of game was it?
It was like really weird. It was crossed between, have you ever played the card game Cheat?
No.
So it's when like you have a set of cards in your hand, and you all have to like lay some cards down in the middle, and you can either be honest with your answer or you can lie. And then if you get called out on it, you have to pick up the cards, and it goes around in a circle. And it's like,
okay, yeah, I've played something like that.
Yeah,
I think it was like cowboy and outlaw or something, and no, maybe it was a psychiatrist, like that type of thing.
Yeah. So it was that cross between Cluedo, and it was all about trying to escape Alcatraz.
That's awesome.
It was weird. It was a weird game. But it was
so you think that maybe that could be a that could be a direction that you'd go in the future with Antler?
You know what?
Start doing tabletop games as well?
I wouldn't rule it out. I have to admit, I would not rule it out.
But that's really cool. So was there a lot of that when you were studying gaming at Brunel, like different sort of types of games as well? What was it just for that class?
So it was this sort of year started out on learning the basics of games design, and video games has stemmed from tabletop games. So we did a module on that, and then the rest of the year throughout years 1, 2, and then our final year is optional to do a group project. But throughout those 2 years, you're often doing group projects, because I think Brunel's view of things, which I completely agree with, is that in the games industry, you work in a group. Typically, you don't, have individual assignments. So they're quite keen to stress that and to really get students in that mentality of sort of working as a team and creating something really cool with all of your strengths. So when it came to third year, we had sort of spoken about it before if we'd want to do it, and we did a game jam together in second year, and we just thought, this is a thing I think that we'd all really benefit from, even if it was just, I think at the time we just wanted to make a dissertation, do something really good, and then sort of hope that we'd make a good game out of it, a good grade. And then Project Grove was born, and we just saw more potential in it.
So what made you choose to do like a puzzle adventure sort of Portal-esque game like Project Grove?
It's a funny story, really. So,
like, how did you come to decide on that?
When we were first brainstorming what we wanted to do as our sort of dissertation, we went from like, let's make a cool detective game, and no, let's do this, let's do that. And then Harry, our programmer, was just like, actually, let's just like not think of the theme for a second. Let's just think of like one really cool mechanic, a mechanic that, is novel and that you can layer on different abilities on. And he had this like brainwave, and he drew it on the whiteboard, and he drew this thing that looked like a nipple. Honestly, everyone thought he drew a nipple. I'm like, what the hell is that? And he was like, listen.
So you have a boob and you have a nipple.
Yeah. He was like, hear me out. And then he was like, imagine if you could get this, thing, this robot or whatever, and place it anywhere in the world, and then it expands out like a platform. And then we were like, holy crap, actually, no, this is a good idea. This is really cool. And then, we then layered potion on it, and, the robot has different abilities. You have different abilities. And then, we thought of all the obstacles you could get over. And it just kind of was born from that. And then after we had, our mechanic, we then layered on the theme. So we went for the steampunk, and we went for this, old man, Edric, leading this expedition, which happens to be about curing a pandemic, which we did not plan.
It's on brand.
I know, spooky. I was like, oh, God's sake, would be, wouldn't it?
But sometimes it just happens that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, like who would have thought that this was where we'd be in 2020? Not us.
At least you can use it. You can use it to as research.
Honestly, it actually has been such a gem for that, because we're actually creating some of our lore at the moment and like really fleshing out the sort of storytelling side of our game. And I have learned so much about pandemics. It's been helpful.
So, I mean, before you went to Brunel, you were actually like working for the NHS. So what was the sort of catalyst that made you think like, I need to get into games?
So when I was working at the NHS, I got a job in A&E, and it was something called a patient flow coordinator. So you basically sort of make sure that patients who come into majors and resus either get discharged or they have a bed in hospital in 4 hours. Otherwise, the government can fine the hospital per breach. So I got into that. Yeah, it was quite a lot of pressure. And I really liked the job, but I couldn't see like much of a career path going from it. And I had just come out of college. I kind of flunked my A-levels a bit. And I didn't know if I wanted to go to uni or not. You know, I didn't want to just gamble it because at that time the fees had all risen, you know, to a huge amount. And I just didn't want to do uni on a whim. So I took some time out and I did loads of free online courses. There's, you know, Coursera and FutureLearn were the two sites that I used. And I just studied loads of stuff for free because I do like learning.
Yeah.
I came across this sort of build your own game thing and I thought, oh, that would be quite cool. And the code inside I didn't mind too much, but I wasn't like passionate about. But actually thinking of the idea and planning stuff around that, I just loved. So I bought some books on games design, and then I realized that this was an area I really wanted to get into. And I kind of left the hospital after I found the course in Brunel because it was the only course that really spoke to me, that, you know, didn't have so much of an emphasis on coding, but it was more about the foundations of design and what a games designer does. Because, you know, like I said, I just didn't even know that was a position in the games industry. I think a lot of people still do think of that, like when they hear of, oh, you work in the games industry, can you build me a website? That's sort of the stuff I get. Or
it's like not even the same field.
Yeah. So yeah, I found Brunel. I fell in love with the course, and I sort of just went from there.
And you sort of you found the position of like producing, like that's something that you just found like you had a knack for, or that you were really interested in?
It's kind of strange. When we were doing Project Grove in our final year, it was actually Tom who was the producer and I was the lead designer because I do genuinely love designing. Yeah, it was, but we switched because the more we were sort of getting into it, the more we realized that we just needed, like, Tom's very good technically. He's got such a good ability to pick up new tech and to just run with it. Like, you know, he builds assets now and he can do work in Unreal, he can blueprint and all the rest. And he just found that side of level design a lot easier than I did. And also he lived with Harry. So Harry's the programmer, and having a designer and the programmer in the same room actually is very valuable. Where things that I like about design, more about sort of the paper side of it, building a GDD, sort of fleshing out the world, all of those aspects of game design, you know, refining the level. It kind of lands naturally in the producer's role. So that's kind of how the switch was made. But it's strange, when you work in an indie studio, you never have just one job. You end up doing like 3 jobs at once.
Yeah.
So, you know, although I'm a producer, I also do design work. I also do some of the 2D art. Like Tom does animation, and he edits all the audio and he does all of the level design. You end up just doing so much within, you know, one role.
Especially when you're in a sort of like indie type of studio as well. Like, I mean, well, even still, I think I've talked to people who are working at the bigger companies, and they said, like, you know, the way that they got to where they are now is because they were an asset, because they could use other things, they could put on other hats, and, you know, it's almost like the the games industry. It just thrives on people who are versatile in many different ways. But that's really cool as well that you guys could see that, like you guys could see the sort of, not necessarily problem, but the difficulty that you guys were having with the development, and that you were able to solve it as well by switching roles. And like, it's that really speaks highly of how good a team you are as well, that you could be honest with each other.
That's the thing, and that's one thing that I think we've always stressed, and we've stressed other people, is just be honest. Like, if you're not enjoying a certain aspect of things, or you find one thing really hard, then you just got to speak up and sort of address it. And we keep that line of communication open all the time, and we still do it now. There'll be aspects that Tom might not enjoy doing, or Harry might not enjoy doing, and then we take on that role and sort of ease off the pressure. And it's just the best way forward to stop any team member feeling overwhelmed, or just that they are not enjoying their sort of job. So you want to keep people happy. Yeah.
And I know in 2018, you did Transfuser, which must feel like a lifetime ago now. I mean, I know we said in the beginning, like, Kickstarter feels like years ago, even though it was only like a month ago, but like, you know, Transfuser back in 2018, how important do you feel as though like initiatives like this are for fostering emerging talent that may otherwise sort of fall through the cracks?
Oh God, it's super important. You know, we were finalists in Transfuser. We didn't actually win the end pot of money, but even that whole experience of getting your prototype to a level which can be judged by like industry experts, and to have the introduction to industry experts, and to have our first experience at you know, going to a trade show, having our own booth, was just invaluable. And that whole experience honestly helped us grow to where we are now, because we got all this feedback from Transfuser about Project Grove, all of the great things and all of the things that we could improve on. And from that feedback, we managed to refine our game to where it is now, and we spent a year refining it. So it's hugely important. I think it's so hard for people who haven't already got an established career in the industry to sort of go into indie work and get noticed. Because, you know, you're sort of young blood, you haven't sort of walked down that road yet, you haven't learned all the things that you need to learn. So having experiences like that really help give you like an insight into the industry, and a really good foundation for starting if you want to do indie work down that road.
It almost feels like it's something that like all people in the games industry should do, really. Like it sounds like that kind of critical application of what you're learning in university, well, no, like even outside of university. It's like, it's something that, you know, you're getting somebody who's telling you like straight off, like what they feel, somebody who's like really knowledgeable about the field, giving you advice and completely unbiased. Like, I feel like when you're already in an established role, people tend to be a bit more maybe sensitive. Like it's not as like sort of, I guess, blatant or blunt, and like not saying that they're like being like unhelpful blunt, but it's like that sort of like uncherry picked, like this is what it is. Like you need to hear that almost, just so that you can grow and can feel like, okay, this is what I need to do in order to improve.
Oh, 100%. I remember like the one feedback which always stays into my mind was from like a publisher, and this was one of our like last rounds of searching for publishers back in 2019. And we were at a trade show, and he was like, look, I'm going to be super frank. You've got a really good idea, but no publisher is ever going to touch you at this point, because you're not a proven studio. You haven't got proven desire for the game. is that my suggestion is try and find funding from elsewhere and then come back to asking for publishers. And it was so blunt that honestly, we could have spent the next 6 months carrying on, searching for more publishers and wasting that time. So you really need that brutal feedback. I prefer it brutal personally rather than cherry picked.
I mean, that is a thing. Like, I mean, I sort of learned it from when I was in the theater industry, is that, like, not all criticism is fantastic, but like constructive criticism where somebody just sometimes, like, just the way that somebody says something, even if it's like inherently negative, like it's critical. Like you need to have that constructive criticism in order to push yourself forward, and you need to be able to accept it as well.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right. It's like applying for a job that, you might not ever get, because and nobody's telling you why you're not, like, nobody's being outwardly honest about why you're not getting it. They're just kind of like passing you by.
Yeah, exactly. And to be able to take that criticism as well, is, like you said, is super important, because especially so for games, like, as soon as you release your game to the public, you're going to get some level of criticism somewhere. I've never heard of that not happening to anyone. So you have to have thick skin for that, and you have to be prepared for it. So, opening yourself up to that is an important aspect of it.
I mean, it is a bit of a difficult thing, though, isn't it? It's just the fact that it's like the chicken and the egg type thing. You need to have, like, you can have all the talent and all the great teamwork in the world and the great idea, but if you're not known for that yet, the publishers won't touch you. And it's just it's so difficult. But, like, thank goodness for things like Kickstarter to allow you to do things elsewhere. But do you feel as though there is a solution to this problem of just needing the experience to get the job, but needing the job to get the experience type of thing?
The main thing I learned during those 2 years was, first of all, I still got a job in the games industry, but it was part-time alongside doing work for Antler Studios. And that was super helpful for me to just gain an insight into the industry, because I think I benefited a lot from that, and you do need that experience somehow. So whether that's the form of you get a part-time job in the industry, or you do some contract work, it's another good way of getting that insight. I think that's one sort of way to the solution. There's different government grants as well that you can apply to. But I think the one thing that I've learned from running a Kickstarter is how important it is to get that validation. So I think unless we had media reviews before that we could show publishers, but it's not the same thing as having X many people wishlist your game, or having, X many downloads, or, over 400 backers and over £30,000 we managed to get campaigned. Those sorts of hard figures, I think, are sort of validation that your game, your product is something that is desirable, and that makes a publisher way more open to taking you on. Because I was reading, there was an article the other day that I was reading about an indie who made a game, and it was a really good game. It had, good reviews on Steam, but it was an absolute commercial flop. And I forgot who the article was written by, but he said, essentially it was just a game that nobody wanted to buy. And that is heartbreaking when you think of how many years would have gone into getting that going, how much financial and I think that's where publishers are coming from, really. They can look at a game and it can play really well, but if it's a game no one wants to buy, they're not going to back it. So proving that your game is something people want, I think, is the most important lesson I've taken on from those 2 years of refining our game, to the point, the month before the Kickstarter was the first time we ever released our game to the public via Steam, via a demo. Before, it was always through trade shows, and we'd always get really good receptions at trade shows. But, you know, how do you communicate that to a publisher? You just can't.
Yeah.
So getting the game out there, you know, getting people playing it, getting YouTube Let's Plays, getting feedback, comments, wish lists, those are the really important things, which I kind of wish we did sooner, but, you know.
You don't, like, that's the thing. You're just focusing on what you're enjoying and what you're feeling passionate about. And it just takes somebody to just point you in the right direction to help you out. And you also mentioned earlier about Lauren Moses, who came in to really help you with promoting it. Like, how essential was she to the campaign?
Oh, she is so essential. And I honestly can't thank her enough for all of the hard work she did. She was, you know, when we first sort of put this job out for a community mail, we needed it because we knew, you know, every reading that I'd done about a Kickstarter campaign is how much work it is. And everyone says, you know, we tell you it's this much work, but just double that in your head. Okay, I think we need, you know, an extra pair of hands. And we were never that good at social media as well. So having someone with the insight to how that works and to really help us network was so important. And Lauren hadn't worked in the games industry before, but she was a really passionate gamer. And, you know, you could tell she had a lot of passion about the industry, and she was really like savvy with her social media and marketing experience. So it was a no-brainer for us. And, you know, she really helped grow the community to where it is now. You know, we didn't have an established Discord before Lauren. We didn't really have a huge Twitter following. We were mainly using Instagram just because that's what I sort of knew more than Twitter. And having that, you know, having an actual community behind Project Growth now, you know, has made all the difference for us.
And how did you actually go about like meeting her?
So we set out a job, I think it was on Indeed, and she sort of applied through Indeed, and then we had a Google Hangouts interview, and that we didn't actually meet up in person when we hired her. We just were like, yep, you know, I just could tell. I was just like, yeah, we're vibing, this is good. And you know, I could tell she was super professional, super motivated, which I think that's the main key sort of asset that we really wanted, is that we wanted to have someone who was really motivated and believed in the game as well, but still had the critical insight too, because we know, you know, the demo was not perfect. We're not perfect. We can always improve the game, but to have those sort of qualities was really important. And then I think I met Lauren like a month or two after we hired her, and yeah, we just got on like House on Fire, went to Sweden together, DreamHack, and we still chat now, even though she's left. We still chat.
Oh,
maybe every day.
Oh, that is amazing though. Like that's yeah, that, you know, I personally, I know like social media is like a sore spot in my sort of realm of like of expertise. So I completely empathize, like 100%. It is like a foreign language.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't, you know, I know how important it is, but I just really struggled with it. Like, I'm not on my phone all the time. You know, I'm stroking my dog or going out for a walk.
Yeah.
I don't sort of live in that universe as much. Then having someone who just could live and breathe that and just knew stuff and knew how to communicate was really important for us.
So assuming Project Grove is a huge success when it releases in August, what's next for you and the rest of Antler Studios?
I think more games, hopefully. You know, we've been working on Project Grove for over 2 years now, and we did a game jam last January. So it's the last global game jam we did. And I just forgot how much I loved designing games like from scratch, because we've just lived and breathed Project Grove for ages now. So, I'm sure Harry and Tom have got loads of ideas. I've got some ideas. I just love to get out there. So I think we'd try and do another game, but you never know. You never know. A publisher might pick up on us, or we might get further funding elsewhere. We could extend the game. We don't quite know yet, but it's exciting. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I wish you guys so much luck for the future. And I'm really excited for Project Grove to finally come out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I had such a blast.
That's it for this episode of She Plays Games. For more information on Project Grove, please be sure to follow Antler Studios on Twitter at @Antler_Studios. And if you're interested, wishlist Project Grove on Steam. That way you know when it releases in August. Also, if you want more episodes of She Plays Games, please be sure to subscribe and follow me on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube by searching She Plays Games, and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at She Plays Podcast. If you want to be on the show or want to nominate someone to come on the show, you can email me at sheplayspodcast@gmail.com. See you all next time on She Plays Games.